Hi there, I'm Sandy Allnock, design team member at uzak.com, and I have a coloring tutorial today on coloring white. All of the holiday and Christmas and winter images that are coming our way in the near future, I thought it'd be a great time to address coloring white. When you color a white item, it has to look white in comparison to things around it. Sometimes it's just the shadows that are on the white object that make it look white. Sometimes it's the color behind it. I picked a great image from a Some Odd Girl stamp set. It's this cute little polar bear, isn't he just adorable? And I thought it'd be fun to show you a couple different ways to color it. And I'm going to have this light coming from the upper left, so I'm going to add just first some initial color to define my shapes. I'm using a C2 marker, and I'm just going to give him some tone overall. Not over everything, because you want it to appear white, but in order for something to appear white, you need to have something for it to show up against. So even though it seems like something white should not need color in it, it does in order to make it look like it's white. So I'm adding just a little bit in a few spots. You can always add more, so don't go heavier than you're comfortable with, because you can start even less than this. I pretty much know what it's going to look like in the end, so I know how much I can afford to put down. And now I'm going to grab my C00 because I want to soften the edges of everything. I'm just going to go back and forth across the whole thing and make my edges as soft as I can. And you can look at an actual polar bear's fur, go pull up some photos and see what you see. Do you see individual hairs? Do you see just a blob, a mass of hair? And what colors do you see in him as well? This one I'm just going to use all the Cool Gray series to make his shading. And I will also do one with some blues, so you can see the difference in what the two of them create. So there's going to be right here where his eyes are, a little recessed area where it kind of goes into his nose and then the nose pops back out again. So I want to create that dimension. All right, now that could be enough, and that's certainly fine to stop there. But I'm going to get really scary, and I'm going to start in with some C4. And I want to add just a little bit of darker color. Because surprisingly, when you have more contrast in something, you're going to end up with more of the white looking white. If you can stand to add a little bit more of the darker colors. And this is a baby polar bear, so I want him to look as cute and fuzzy as possible, but I want to give him enough contrast to appear like he's actually being lit by something, and that will give him the depth and roundness that most people are looking for when they color something. And now I'm going to take my C1, so I'm going to go a little lighter than what I started off with that C2 at the very start, and I'm going to blend a little bit more of that. It's just going to give me more roundness going around to the edges of these shapes. And the more roundness, the better. So, anywhere where the ears join, or there's parts that join an object, usually there's a little more shadow there. That's why his ears are getting a little bit extra. And then I want to increase the depth in where his eyes kind of sink back in toward his head a little bit. So I'm just going to stretch out that little line of C4 that I added. And add a little bit more to his cheek. And now he needs a little bit under all of these spots where his little face is making little crease marks. Each one of those will have a little bit of a shadow. Not much. I don't want to go in with too heavy of color. And there. Now to add some contrast so that he definitely looks like he's in an icy setting, I'm going to add a little bit of blue behind him so he looks like he's on a little bit of a snowy spot because he's a polar bear. And this is B21. I added just a little bit at the bottom. And then I'm going to add some B00 to it. And that'll both brighten it and carry it a little bit higher. And then I want to have a little bit of the B00 around him, because when you have white, you want it surrounded by some other color because then it looks white by comparison. And then this is B000, 4 zeros. And I'm going to blend that out so that it just softens all the way out from the little bear. I don't want it to be a full block necessarily, but I just want it to be a light haze of blue around him so that he's definitely in a icy cold setting. And you can already see that he looks white compared to that blue, even though he's got so much gray in him. He's definitely got that feel of being a white bear. Okay, now for his little nose. I want to give him a little bit of depth in the nose. So that was a C8. And I'm going to take the C4 and blend out a little bit, but I'm going to leave a white highlight up here and color over some of that C8 so it lightens it a little bit. A little bit of RV21 for the insides of his ears, just to add a little pink pop to it. This bear is going to have more blue, so I'm going to do similar work as I did on the other one. I'm going to have my light come from the opposite side though, and this time I'm going to start with my shadow areas, and I'm using B21 for the shadows, because with blue you want to have a little bit less. You don't want that overall gray that I had going on in the other bear. You want it to be a little bit on the softer side and more of a hint of color rather than being a whole lot of color overwhelming your image, because then he'll look like a blue bear and we want him to feel like a white bear. So next I'm going to take my B00. This is the same combination I used for the sky, but I'm going to use just a little bit around the edges, and I'm just going to soften all of his little shadows that I've already placed there. You can start just with the B00. You don't even have to go with the darker B21, but the more I color, the more I'm finding that I like the look of a little bit of contrast in my images, because the more contrast they have, the more realistic you can make them. And you also have more space for the image being forgiving, that you can add more color and keep working into it. When I used to try to leave very, very little color on the image, I would end up really struggling, because then I couldn't get any blending done because I was so limited in the area that I would allow myself to put color down. So that would make a really big difference. So now I've got my B0000, 4 zeros, and I'm just softening out my blues. Now as you go over the other darker blues that are there, some of that will lighten. So if you've gotten too much in there, You can certainly add more to lighten that up and just go over it a few times, depending on whether you need to leave it set for a little bit so that it's not super wet when you do it. Might help if you have an image you need to recover from. Basically, that is a little bear. Just add a little tiny bit to his tail. So again, I'm going to take my C8 for the nose, add a little bit. His eyes didn't get stamped very clearly, so I'll just go over those a little bit as well. I waited until after getting my image colored before doing that because I didn't want to color over across it and drag some of that black ink where I didn't want it to go. Smooth out his little nose with a C4. And then RV21 again for the insides of his ears. Just add that little bit of pink. Now I'm going to have this be a moonlight image. And how am I going to convey that it's nighttime for this little bear? Because this is also going to really help in making the making it obvious that he's a white bear, because I'll have it with a lot of contrast behind it. Now it's very possible for you as well, if you don't want to color all this, to cut him out because he's easy to cut out, and paper piece him. And that is certainly a reasonable way to go, unless you want to color it. So I'm just going to color him and color his background. And this is a B39. I want the sky. I want the sky to be a little bit, I don't know how to describe what I'm picturing. You know the northern lights that have just a little bit of a swoosh in the sky? I want to have that swoosh going across here. Now I'm going to cut the image off the sides so I can continue as far as I want, because I'm going to trim it. And that's going to mark my light spot for myself, where I want to reserve the light. And that was B34, and now I'm going with a B23 for a medium tone to blend those two together. And I'm just going to scrub over top of them back and forth until they blend like I want them to. And you can do this with almost any two colors, even if they don't go together. If you scrub over them quite a bit, and especially when you're doing it in a background where it doesn't matter a whole lot, and you have the space to bleed the marker, you can certainly blend any two colors. I've blended red and green and all different kinds of things before. It's of course going to be easier with blues for a sky like this. So I'm just trying to get it to be sort of a natural swooshy blue. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put the dark blue at the top. And then when I get this all done, I'm going to add stars to it, so it's going to be much more clear that it's a night sky too. But I'm going to add my blue sky above. And I think I'm going to leave a big moon up here in the corner of the image. So now I'm going to go back with my B34 and make sure I've got those blended where I want them, those colors. And now my B23 to blend the dark blue down into the light blue. And I'll just scrub back and forth with different ones of the blues because I want to make sure I get them blended so they all feel like they are working better together. I think I want more of the B34. down that direction. Now I'm starting to get some spots where the darkest blue is lightning, and that will happen. Perfectly fine to have that happen. So then all you have to do is add more, since you've got so much saturation going on the paper, you can add more of the dark blue, and then on your next round of blending, going back with the B3, 4 again. Keep picking up and laying down different markers. Going back in with the B3, 4, dragging that color back down. It's going to be a lot easier to blend once you've got enough ink on that paper to get it good and blended. Okay. So go over top of that. Now, what do I do with that moon? How do I make that moon look like it's the moon that I want it to be? I can add some spots to it. And remember, I'm going to trim this out in the corner, so perfectly fine to leave it a little bit. It doesn't look perfectly round here, but that's all going to be chopped off. So I'm going to add it with my B0, what was that? B00, and now some B 4 zeros. 0, 0, 0, 0. Just to give that a little bit more color, because it's going to be cut off about there-ish, I think. So I think I've got enough there. And now I want to add the drop shadow under him because he's standing on some snow. So I'm going to go back in with my B21. And I'm going to add his little shadow under his feet. And I'm going to soften that with my B0, 0, 0. Just to soften that blending out just a little bit. And there is our little nighttime bear. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to watch this video. I hope you were nice and toasty warm in your house while you watched it. If you would like to click that like button down below, that means the world to the channel. It makes us much more searchable by other people so they can find the great videos that are here. And if you'd like to leave me a comment and let me know what your most challenging image is to color when it comes to white. Is it harder to do snow scenes, bears, Santa's beard? What kinds of things are tough for you? And maybe that will show up in a future video if it looks like there's a clamoring for something. All right, you guys have a really, really great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.